I truly believe this is the most misunderstood scene in history. This is from season 5 of Game of Thrones and aired in June of 2015. Now, here we are, January of 2026, and people are still misrepresenting and misunderstanding this scene as they quote it to this day and totally don't understand the context of those quotes within the scene and the show in general, and that just baffles me because it's not a gray area or a mystery in this show what's going on. I'll break it down for you so you kind of understand. So the context that people quote this is, say there's a protest going on and they want to go after their political opponent or someone they're in opposition to, and they'll say shame, 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 shame. That is a direct quote from this scene. So in this scene, this blonde woman, Cersei Lannister, she is the mother of the king of the Seven Realms in Game of Thrones. So she has a lot of political power, and she comes from the most wealthy family on that continent, arguably the most wealthy family. So she comes from people with a lot of political power and military power and wealth. So within that, she is able to do a lot of things. And a lot of the things that she does are quite evil. She lies, cheats, and steals, plays the political games, and is quite vengeful and spiteful, and will go after people sometimes when it's just out of vengeance and evil. She just has a problem with someone does something, says something against her, gets a good diss on her, and she'll go after them when she probably shouldn't, right? This is an evil character. Undoubtedly, one of the antagonists of the series, probably the main antagonist of the entire series. She's quite evil. But you also need to consider who this character is and who her father is. Her father is like in charge of her family, and he's an even more evil guy, and often is directly just instructing her and the other members of her family on what to do. A lot of the evil that's done by the Lannisters is a result of Tywin's decisions or influence, and that's important. That's very important. That doesn't excuse all the things she does, but is definitely like a main contributing factor. So keep that in mind. So Cersei done all kinds of evil crap, very politically powerful in this series. Now, she weaponizes this church that exists. You know, it's hard to tell how widespread it is within the series, but at least within like the main castle area of King's Landing, to go after basically a political opponent of hers. And it's effective in what she seeks to do. Now, she gets what's coming to her, and this church also then goes after Cersei. Now, the way they do this is unbelievably brutal. They take her out to the street, strip her naked in front of everybody, the general public. Then they ring a bell and say shame, and force her to walk naked through the streets where she is attacked physically, verbally, insulted, threatened, has stuff thrown on her. You can see here she's literally bleeding and crying her eyes out and is forced to walk naked through the streets. It is a crazy, crazy scene where it's clear cut that this is demented and backwards and pure evil. What's happening to Cersei? Despite she herself being an evil person, she doesn't deserve this. Yes, she's done backhanded things. Yes, she's gone after people and her decisions have gotten people killed. But that doesn't mean she deserves to be completely dehumanized and treated as an absolute like piece of dirt. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. And most of the our real world here, the civilized parts of the world, would see this as being the most unimaginably horrific. Could you imagine if in your hometown a church did this to someone? you would be outraged. You would not be okay with it. Just because Cersei is an evil person in the context of the show, that doesn't make what's happening to her okay. So when people quote this scene and say shame, shame, shame to their political opponent, someone who voted differently from them, or maybe somebody who they even have a larger political ideological difference beyond just party lines. What they're not understanding is the people in this scene who are saying shame and repeating the word shame are the bad guys. In fact, that's the entire point of the scene, is that despite Cersei having power and being a very evil person, she is just a person, and she's kind of the product of her environment. She's not entirely to blame for every evil deed she has done. And that this is not deserved, that the people doing this to Cersei are the evil people. They are the bad guy in this situation, and it's super obvious. I don't know how anyone misunderstands this scene. It's the entire purpose, is that an individual's evil is nowhere near the level that the evil of society commits, right? Because there's two evil things going on at once. There's the evil of the people on the streets attacking her, and then there's also the evil of the church creating this entire situation and forcing her to walk through these streets naked. So there's the evil of society, the complacency and the just viciousness and violence of society, and then also the institutional evil of that religion and religion in general, which often treats women like dirt. My goodness, how does this fly? How did this fly over anyone's head? And our people are quoting it to this day. I guarantee you today, probably in Minneapolis, there are people shouting shame repeatedly and not understanding that in that actual scene, the people doing that are the bad guys. It's amazing. It's astounding, and it needs to be studied. If someone out there studies human behavior and psychology and all that, a study needs to be done on this, particularly people who specifically quote this scene and think they are the good guys. Because that's crazy. That is 20 levels of crazy. There's no other way to interpret this scene. It's like look at what you're freaking seeing if you aren't familiar with the scene, or if you are familiar, look at it through a different lens. This is like the most horrific scene in the entire series, where there's multiple scenes where people are forced to do some incredibly crazy stuff. This scene is the most stomach turning, and it should be. Oh my god, it's just astounding. So yeah, shame scene from Game of Thrones. The most misunderstood in history. If you have another scene that you believe is more misunderstood, let me know. Leave it in the comments. But yeah,